beautiful people. My name is Jai and welcome to my channel. I'm back with another video from Tub, and this is gamers who died while playing their favorite games. So yeah, sit back, relax, and let's get into the video.
Have you ever been so engulfed in a video game that time itself just disappears? You tell yourself just one more match, and suddenly it's hours later, your body feels off, but you continue anyway. Now imagine that exact moment being the last thing you ever do. Because there are real cases of gamers who pushed it too far, like a man who streamed for nearly 24 hours straight and was later found dead, a 24-year-old who kept playing even while coughing up blood, and another gamer who died at his setup while people around him didn't even notice. Today we're going to be talking about gamers who died playing their favorite games. Brian Vigneault, age 35, attempted 24 hours of continuous play for charity. The most charitable thing this gamer ever did was also his last. I'm talking about Brian Vigneault regarding an incident on the night of February 19, 2017 in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Brian went by Poshibrid online. He had a sort of chaotic style which apparently was very him. He was 35, a father of 3, and by day a guy who knew his way around an engine. His obituary described him as someone with a genuine talent for solving mechanical problems, but online he was a different kind of person. The kind who kept thousands of people tuned in to watch him play World of Tanks, and who over 5 years had quietly raised nearly $11,000 for various charities. This particular stream was for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. He sat down, went live on Twitch, and started playing. His friend Jessica Gebauer, a fellow streamer tuning in from Canada, watched the hours tick by. By hour 22, she said he looked extremely tired. People in the chat were telling him to go to sleep, but he kept going. Around 3:30 in the morning, Brian told his viewers he was stepping out for smokes and left the stream running. By 11 a.m., people in the chat just assumed he'd crashed somewhere. Then at 7 p.m. that evening, about 15 hours after he walked away from the screen, one of his viewers noticed he'd appeared online in Discord and sent him a message, but apparently a detective responded saying that Brian had been found dead in his home on Glen Locken Drive. But what was his cause of death? Because for months, the story lived as a cautionary tale about gaming marathons and sleep deprivation. You know, as most would assume, he died from sleep deprivation and exhaustion. The internet had run with that. But when the Virginia Medical Examiner finally released findings, the actual cause of death was a fentanyl overdose, a drug that, according to health officials, is roughly 100 times more potent than morphine and about 50 times stronger than heroin. So yeah, the stream didn't kill him, but the circumstances surrounding it, 22 hours without sleep, a habit of chain smoking and drinking during sessions, painted a picture of someone already running on empty. His clan, Fame, posted a tribute calling him a legend. His 3 kids were left behind. A GoFundMe set up in his name eventually crossed $20,000, managed by his father, Ronald. The Make-A-Wish Foundation quietly confirmed they were looking into whether any formal fundraising agreement had even been in place. But the point is this: Brian's story got passed around as proof that gaming could kill you. However, as made clear from official reports, the real story was a bit messier, and while he obviously was trying to do something good, he just wasn't in any shape to do it. Wu Tai, age 24, played one game for 19 hours straight. If you know this next game, you probably know that how it goes is that you log in and do one thing, and then 3 hours later you're still there, deep in a dungeon you didn't plan to enter, chasing an item drop you technically don't even need. For most people, that's a Tuesday night in World of Warcraft. For Wu Tai, a 24-year-old in Shanghai, it became something no one in that internet cafe that day was prepared for. This happened back in March of 2015. Wu walks into an unnamed cafe in Shanghai and sits down in front of a screen. Quick game, but then he doesn't get up for 19 consecutive hours. The guy next to him, Hisen Lo, age 20, was the first to notice something was wrong. He heard Wu groan. When he turned to look, Wu had gone completely pale, and he was pressing a handkerchief against his mouth, one that had some blood on it. Hisen asked him if he was okay. Wu said he felt okay, that he'd be fine. So Hisen still called an ambulance, and his friend went to find the cafe staff. But then something happened that's even harder to process, because while they were waiting for the paramedics, Wu kept playing. Really does seem like he was addicted to the game. He was still coughing up blood, visibly deteriorating, and still stuck in front of the screen. Then the coughing became more violent and he slumped back in his chair. By the time medical crews arrived, Wu Tai was already gone, dead. There was nothing that could be done. And you can see it here because CCTV footage caught the whole thing. Wu had turned to his left, the violent coughing, and then the slump. The whole time, other gamers in the cafe were watching it happen in real time. Now, the exact cause of death was never officially confirmed to the public, but a police spokesman told reporters that the 19 hours of uninterrupted play almost certainly played a role. This Reddit, besides real doctors and medical professionals who cover the case, pointed towards something called deep vein thrombosis. What happens when a blood clot forms in the legs after long periods of stillness? Those clots can break loose, travel through the veins into the heart, and get pumped out into the vessels of the lungs. At that point, it becomes a pulmonary embolism and can kill you fast. The blood Wu was coughing up fits that picture almost exactly. What's sadder is that this wasn't new information even in 2015. A UK gamer had died 4 years earlier from a blood clot after sitting with his Xbox 360 for up to 12 hours a day. Doctors have been saying for years that prolonged sitting doesn't matter where, it can happen on planes, in cars, at desks. It all raises the risk significantly. The fix is almost embarrassingly simple. Stand up, walk around a few minutes every hour, and go right back to sitting down. This is to keep the blood moving. Wu Tai was only 24. Died after 3-day gaming marathon. Shay, age 32. I bet you've seen someone fall asleep at their desk at least one time. And in Taiwan's internet cafes, that's practically part of the furniture. Someone slumped over a keyboard, head down, catching a quick 1-hour nap before the next session. The staff and the other customers know it and really don't mind. It's just the rhythm of the place, which is exactly why, when Shay died, nobody noticed for hours. This happened back in 2015 on January 6th. A 32-year-old man, known only by his surname Shay, walked into an internet cafe in Hune District, Taiwan's second largest city, and sat down in front of a screen. He started playing combat games, and as you might already guess, he didn't stop. 2 days later, on the morning of January 8th, a cafe attendant went to check on him and found him motionless, sprawled across the desk. The attendant had assumed, like they had countless times before, that he was just sleeping. Shay was a regular client there, and the staff knew his pattern. He'd play until he physically couldn't anymore, then sleep face down on the table or slumped in the chair, then wake up and go again. The cafe attendant told reporters, "That's why we weren't aware of his condition in the beginning. When they actually found out, he was rushed to the hospital but was pronounced dead from cardiac failure." But how long had he actually been dead before anyone found him? Turns out, his body had already begun to stiffen by the time officers arrived, so they assumed he'd been dead for several hours at minimum, sitting in a room full of people. And let me just say, the coldness with which they treated Shay inevitably makes you sort of wonder what must have happened beforehand for someone to die and simply be left there for days. It's just crazy to say the least. Anyway, it was later discovered that he had been unemployed for a long time. His family said he would simply disappear for 2 or 3 days at a stretch, and they know exactly where he was. The internet cafe was, quote, the only place he could go, they said. Now, the cold temperatures inside the cafe, combined with what Police Chief Wang Xiangneng described as overexhaustion from intense game playing, were identified as likely contributing factors to the cardiac arrest. That, plus the 3 days with barely any food and barely any movement, it was a matter of time for his body to give up. But the craziest part of this story isn't even Shay's death. It's that when police and paramedics showed up to retrieve the body, the other customers just kept playing. Officers had to cordon off the tables, gather evidence, move through the space, and people around them barely looked up from their screens. A police spokesperson said they were amazed at their nonchalant attitude. Only when the full scene was set up did the other patrons even register that someone had died. Rustam, age 17, dead from thrombosis. He didn't move around much. What are you supposed to do when you're 17, stuck at home with a broken leg, and suddenly have all the time in the world? For most teenagers, the answer is pretty obvious. You play video games. For a kid in the town of Uchili, in Russia's Republic of Bashkortostan, that answer turned into 22 straight days on a keyboard. His name was Rustam. On August 8, 2015, he broke his leg and was sent home to recover. That's when the session started. The game was Defense of the Ancients. Some people know it as Dota, a team battle game originally built as a mod for Warcraft 3 that eventually became so popular it spawned an entire genre of competitive gaming and its own sequel, Dota 2. It's the kind of game where you control a hero, fight alongside teammates, and push to destroy the enemy's base in matches that can last an hour or more. The kind of game that, once you're deep in it, is very hard to walk away from, especially mid-match or basically when you have nowhere else to be. So Rustam had been playing Dota for a while already. Investigators later calculated he logged more than 2,000 hours of the game over the previous year and a half, around 6.5 hours a day on average. But after the injury, that trend got to new levels. Police spokeswoman Svetlana Abramova told reporters that in 22 days following the broken leg, he played almost continuously, only stopping to eat and sleep. His parents could hear him at the keyboard, but on August 30th, the sound stopped. His parents went quiet listening for any of the usual tones, but heard nothing. Naturally, they rushed into his home and unfortunately found him unconscious. So they rushed him to the hospital, but Rustam was declared dead on arrival. Doctors pointed to thrombosis, the same mechanism that's killed other gamers in this video. Blood clots form in the legs during extended stillness. But this kid had worse chances because thrombosis occurs in roughly 50% of cases involving bone fractures. The broken leg was by itself already raising his risk dramatically, and then he sat motionless at a screen for 3 weeks on top of it. The scariest or maybe ironic detail about the whole case is that when Rustam collapsed, his character had just been killed in the game. That means that his in-game avatar died on screen at nearly the same moment he did in his chair. It's a dark, disturbing detail, but I can't help myself but mention it. Anyway, following this, Russia's children's rights ombudsman Pavel Astakov publicly called it a warning to all parents, saying that children shouldn't become hostages to their computer. Psychologist Rustam Kalimulin, who commented on the case, pointed to something more nuanced, that gaming addiction escalates when children don't have enough parental attention. Not necessarily neglect in the dramatic sense, he said. Sometimes just parents not paying close enough attention to where a kid disappears for weeks at a time. This kid was playing games for 22 days with a broken leg, and nobody noticed that the two things together were quietly killing him. Elijah, age 22, and Taylor, age 28. Shot on live by fellow contestant. Well, this one is different. Up to this point, we've seen cases involving a body giving out, a heart condition, a blood clot, a system pushed past its limit by drugs, familiar cases. But this one is about a Sunday afternoon in Jacksonville, Florida, where two men went to play in a video game tournament, healthy and all, but met their death anyway. Elijah Clayton, age 22, grew up in Woodland Hills, California. He played football at Calabasas High School, and somewhere along the way he discovered that Madden, the football video game, was a thing he was genuinely great at. So great, in fact, that by the time of the Jacksonville tournament, he was ranked 6th on EA Sports all-time money earner list in competitive Madden. He'd won $51,000 in his career, and according to his family, he was saving all of it for college. His cousin, Brandy Pettyjohn, told reporters that he, talking about Elijah, didn't believe in violence and had never been in a fistfight in his life. There was also Taylor Robertson, age 27, from Ballard, West Virginia, a small rural corner of the state with poor enough internet service that he could barely maintain an online presence like the other pros did. He showed up to tournaments anyway, always with a smile and something kind to say. He'd won the Madden Classic National Championship in 2016, took home over $80,000 across his career, and had a wife and young child at home. Days before Jacksonville, he tweeted about chasing a second belt. The tournament that weekend was a GLHF, game bar inside Chicago Pizza and Sports Grill at Jacksonville Landing, a riverfront complex in downtown. GLHF is an acronym in case there are any non-gamers watching this video, and it means good luck, have fun. Around 150 people were packed into a game room in the back. The prize was $5,000 and a spot in the Madden Classic in Las Vegas. It was August 26, 2018. David Katz, age 24, had driven 11 hours down from Baltimore. He'd been competing on the Madden circuit for a few years and won $10,000 at a tournament in 2017, but fellow players described him as someone who never really fit in with the community. He wore the same outfit both days of the tournament and didn't shake hands after matches, for example. Court records from his parents' long divorce case showed he'd been hospitalized in psychiatric facilities twice as a teenager and had been prescribed antipsychotic medication. His father had disputed the diagnosis. His mother had told a judge that without his Xbox controllers, he'd pace the house in circles until 4 in the morning. On Sunday, Katz lost the match to Reginald Boogs Brown. 5 to 10 minutes later, he walked back into the game room carrying a 9mm handgun with an aftermarket laser sight and extra ammunition. He pointed the red laser dot at Elijah Clayton's chest. He was mid-game, smiling, completely unaware. The dot hovered there for a moment. Then Katz fired. Clayton was hit at least twice and died in his chair. Robertson was shot as he tried to get outside and was found flat on his back on the patio. He died there. 11 others were wounded. Katz fired 12 shots total before turning the gun on himself. Crazy, but that's how 3 lives ended in just a few minutes of unhinged anger. Zoo Cowan, age 26, killed for selling gamer's sword. What do you do when someone steals something?
And the fact that he would pace around his room till like 4 in the morning without the controller,
Valuable from you, and the police tell you that what was stolen isn't even real. Well, that was Chu Shengwei's situation in the winter of 2004 in Shanghai, and the answer he settled on was the one that ended a 26-year-old man's life. To understand why, you have to understand what Legend of Mir 3 was in China at the time. This was a fantasy MMORPG with warriors, sorcerers, and enormous swords, and it was genuinely massive. The game had been certified by the Guinness Book of Records for having 750,000 subscribers online simultaneously, and by the time it eventually shut down years later, it had racked up 120 million registered users. In early 2000s China, this game was more like a cultural phenomenon, and the weapons and items you accumulated inside it had real market value, and people were trading and selling them through auction sites for real money in an underground economy that experts were already estimating at somewhere between $100 million and $1 billion globally. Chu Shengwei, age 41, had worked hard inside the game for a weapon called the Dragon Saber, a powerful item he and a friend won together by defeating a monster. It was the kind of thing serious players spent enormous time grinding to obtain. Chu then lent it to a fellow player named Zhu Kaiyun, age 26. By the way, here is his name on the screen. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. A trusted arrangement between people who knew each other through the game. What you didn't know was that Zhu had no intention of giving it back. Zhu sold it for 7,200 won, which at the time worked out to roughly $870 and was about 5 times the average monthly income in Shanghai. So for Zhu, that was serious money. When Chu found out, he went to the police and reported it as theft. The police, well, they looked at him and essentially said there was nothing they could do. The Dragon Saber didn't exist in the physical world, and China had no law at the time that covered virtual in-game property. The sword was just like data, and you couldn't sort of steal data legally speaking. Chu had no recourse, so he went to Zhu directly and demanded the money from the sale. Zhu promised to pay, then Chu waited, and at some point in the early hours of the morning, whatever patience he had left ran out. He broke into Zhu's home and stabbed him in the chest. Zhu's father later told reporters his son had barely managed to get his pants on before Chu was already on top of him. Zhu Kaoyun died from the wounds. Chu turned himself in immediately afterward, telling police he hadn't intended on killing him. The court didn't fully buy that and sentenced him to death with a 2-year suspension, which in China effectively translates to life in prison. Yes, for something that never actually existed outside of a screen, but did end up fatal. Chris Staniforth, age 20, blood clot from marathon gaming. You know that feeling after a long night of gaming, when you finally look up and it's already light outside, and somehow that feels like a win? Chris Staniforth knew that feeling well. He was 20 years old, from Sheffield, England, and Halo on his Xbox was basically his entire social world. His dad, David, told reporters Chris would regularly stay on for 12 hours straight, playing online with people from all over the world, losing track of time the way you do when a game is going well, and there's always one more match to play. Chris had just been accepted into a game design program at Leicester University. He turned his obsession into an actual career path, which honestly, a lot of people would call a success. His father said that, quote, he lived for his Xbox. I never dreamed he was in any danger. The night before May 12, 2011, Chris had been up all night, same as usual. At some point during the session, he told a friend he was feeling a pounding sensation in his chest, but it passed, or seemed to, and he fell asleep. The next morning, he and a friend were heading out together to apply for jobs. Chris got as far as the pavement outside the job center before he collapsed. He never made it inside. The coroner's finding was a blood clot, specifically one that had formed in Chris's left calf and quietly migrated up through his bloodstream to his lungs, where it caused a fatal pulmonary embolism, blocking the main artery carrying oxygenated blood. We've mentioned this condition before in this video already. It's the same thing that killed Wu Tai in Shanghai and was suspected in Rustam's case in Russia. But what makes Chris's case stand out is this. He was 20 years old with no underlying medical conditions whatsoever. DVT in someone that young is truly rare. His body had no obvious reason to be vulnerable, and yet the coroner's conclusion pointed squarely at the hours of immobility building up over time, session by session, night after night in that chair. After this, his father started a public awareness campaign because what bothered him most was that nobody ever told Chris this was even possible. The message he kept repeating to other parents was, don't stop your kids from playing, just make sure they get up and move around. Enjoy it, he said, but take a break. Microsoft put out a statement pointing to their existing Play Smart, Play Safe guidance and encouraging periodic breaks, which, yes, much needed. But still insane that Chris Staniforth was 20, healthy but still fell victim. Also, the loss was so great because of his prospects. I mean, he was good enough at Halo to have built a whole future around gaming. He had a university place waiting, and he had a job interview that morning. Chen Rongyu, age 23, he died and his fellow gamers kept going. Now it's February 1st, 2012. A 23-year-old man named Shen Rongyu walked into an internet cafe in New Taipei City, Taiwan at 10 o'clock at night. He's a cable TV engineer, and this cafe is a place he knows well, a place he comes to regularly. He takes his usual spot in the corner of the first row, lights a cigarette, and opens up League of Legends. He's paid for 23 hours up front, which obviously means he has no intention of leaving early. There's a reason for that, actually. Everyone in that cafe was so locked in that night because League of Legends was running a 400% bonus IP event, IP being the in-game currency you earn from matches to unlock new characters and items. A 400% multiplier is the kind of thing that pulls serious players in for hours, because every match you play is worth 4 times the normal reward. You don't just log off from that. So Chen played, and the 30 or so players around him in that crowded, smoke-filled room played too. Everyone head down and focused on their own screens. What nobody around Chen noticed, or at least nobody reacted to, was that somewhere around noon the next day, he went quiet. The staff clerk later told police that around 3 p.m. on Wednesday, Chen's head drooped slightly and his hand stretched out in front of him, still touching the keyboard. The clerk said that they thought he was only dozing off because Chen had been taking short naps at his desk throughout the session, which honestly wasn't unusual, so no one intervened. It wasn't until the clerk went to wake him when his 23-hour block ran out that he realized something was deeply wrong. Chen's face had gone dark and his body was completely rigid. His hands were still stretched toward the keyboard, frozen in position. When the clerk moved the chair back, Chen stayed in the same shape, as if he were still playing. Police were called and medical examiners later confirmed he'd been dead for somewhere between 9 and 10 hours before anyone noticed. When something like this happens, you would assume that everyone gets alarmed and they close the place down in the meantime, right? Well, that didn't happen. I mean, you've seen that from a case we already talked about. When police arrived to cordon off the area and begin their investigation, the other 30 players in the cafe basically kept going. A few glanced over, most didn't even do that. But why though? I mean, normal people would have empathy that would at least warrant some reaction, right? Well, a sociology professor at National Tsinghua University named Wang Chin-shu commented that prolonged immersion in violent virtual worlds can desensitize players to what's actually happening around them. So it's like they were basically in an alternate reality. Now back to Chen. It's probably important to know that he had actually been a patient at National Taiwan University Hospital the previous year because he suffered a cardiac episode in 2011 and undergone extensive testing like echocardiography, coronary angiography, cardiac electrophysiology, all of it. Every single test came back clean. No structural heart problems were found, but doctors recommended he have a cardioverter defibrillator implanted as a precaution, which Chen refused to. He heard there was nothing detectably wrong with his heart, and he never went back. 3 months after his last appointment with his doctor, he died in that corner seat. So, at the end, police pointed to a combination of factors. The cold temperatures inside the cafe, like the Taiwan case we saw, extreme fatigue from staying up through the night, and near total immobility across those 10 hours. Found in his scooter's storage compartment afterward was a hospital appointment slip, an upcoming follow-up he never made it to. Calvin Riley, age 20, followed Games Guy into an aquatic park and got shot. If you were alive in the summer of 2016 and had a smartphone, you probably played Pokemon Go, which had launched on July 6th of that year, and within weeks had pulled in over 200 million monthly active players worldwide. There were more people on Pokemon Go than Twitter at the time. People were stumbling through parks, down city streets, along waterfronts, literally glued to their phones, catching Pokemon. It was genuinely unlike anything gaming had done before. And that summer, one of those 200 million people was a 20-year-old from San Mateo, California named Calvin Riley. He was a pitcher, a good one. He played for the San Joaquin Delta College Mustangs and was considered a rising prospect. He'd grown up in Boston and dreamed of playing for the Red Sox. He had his father as an assistant coach on his high school team. He was, by every account from the people who knew him, the kind of person who saw the good in everyone and made a point of saying so out loud. On the evening of August 6, 2016, Calvin and a friend were at Aquatic Park in San Francisco, near Girard Daly Square and Fisherman's Wharf, a popular waterfront destination. Very much a public space, well lit and busy. They were playing Pokemon Go walking along the promenade. At some point earlier in the evening, the two had noticed someone watching them from the top of a hill overlooking the park. It was dark, and they were mostly focused on their phones, so they kept walking. At approximately 9:50 p.m., Calvin was struck by a bullet from behind, traveling on a north to northwest trajectory. His friend, who was a short distance ahead, heard the shot and turned to see Calvin fall. He was shot in the chest and pronounced dead at the scene. Whoever fired just ran away. The investigation that followed produced 2 suspect sketches and 2 suspicious vehicles, a 2015 white Hyundai Sonata and a dark-colored Audi A3 wagon, both of which arrived together just before the shooting and left together immediately after. The FBI took over the case in January of 2023, and as recently as June of 2025, released a new sketch of a second person of interest. To this day, there are no further clues to solve this case. A $25,000 reward remains on the table. Calvin's father, Sean, told KTVU that he always believed his son was targeted deliberately. Why, nearly 9 years later? Nobody knows. Calvin Riley was 20 years old, walking through a public park on a summer night, doing something tens of millions of people were doing that exact same evening, and he never made it home. Tim Eves, age 25, sudden death syndrome. This next case, at least according to me, is the weirdest of all. To recap, several cases in this video so far have followed a similar kind of logic. Well, except that one guy that snapped at the tournament and the Pokemon Go shooting. For the rest of the cases, you can follow the trend easily. But for this next game that this dude was playing, it was literally designed to keep you healthy, and he was one of the most active people in the room. Tim Eves was 25 years old from Hopton-on-Sea, a small coastal village near Great Yarmouth in Norfolk, England. By every account, he was genuinely fit. He was a scout leader, he cycled, went fishing, he played drums in a local rock and roll band. Basically, he didn't know how to sit still. On March 4, 2009, Tim had just come home from Portugal, where he'd gone to celebrate his mother June's 50th birthday. Back at his place in Hopton-on-Sea, he settled in for the evening with his girlfriend Emma, ordered himself a kebab, and was having a glass of port. Just a relaxed evening in. They said goodnight and he hung up the phone. Then he switched to Wii Fit and started the jogging level, the one where you jog on the spot in front of the TV, moving your body to match the game. And a little while after that, he slumped on the floor. Emma and Lewis tried to revive him immediately. Then an ambulance was called and paramedics worked on him. But Tim was declared dead on arrival at the hospital. A post-mortem was conducted, and the family was told the most likely explanation was sudden adult death syndrome, sometimes written as SADS, sudden arrhythmic death syndrome. It's exactly what it sounds like, a genetic condition affecting the heart's electrical system that can cause sudden cardiac arrest in young, outwardly healthy people with zero warning and often no detectable prior symptoms. It's linked to roughly 1 in 20 cases of sudden cardiac failure in young adults, and there's clearly no reliable way to determine exactly what part of the heart fails. Warning signs, according to medical guidance at the time, included a family history of unexplained sudden death, or fainting during exercise, or sudden excitement. Whether Tim had any of those risk factors was never made public. What's worth sitting with here is that Wii Fit itself almost certainly had nothing to do with it. Tim could have collapsed walking up the stairs, or jogging outside, or playing a gig with his band. SADS doesn't need a trigger beyond physical exertion. Sometimes not even that. The game just happened to be what he was doing when it struck. Also, just an extremely scary thing to happen to someone. I mean, your heart just randomly stopping? These are the bodies that we were given? Anyway, on to our last subject. Jeff, age 19, and Bukowski, age 18. Same game, 2 deaths at local arcades. So let's close this video out with something a little different. This last one is 2 cases stitched together, and only one of them is real. And the interesting thing is, the fake one is actually the more famous of the 2. You've probably heard that a game called Berserk killed people in arcades. Berserk was a 1980s Stern electronic shooter. It was frantic, loud, designed by a guy named Alan McNeil, who wanted your average game to last exactly 3 minutes before the bouncing smiley face known as Evil Otto hunted you down. The game spread through North American arcades fast, and almost immediately, stories started circulating about players dying while playing it. The first name attached to the legend is Jeff Daly, supposedly a 19-year-old from Virginia who walked into his local arcade on January 12, 1981, played Berserk for hours, hit a high score of 16,660, and then suffered a fatal heart attack right there at the machine. That score, by the way, contains 666, which is probably why the internet ran with it so enthusiastically. And for context, that's an era where the Illuminati and satanic worship and related stories were really a thing that was feared or revered a lot. The story traveled through gaming magazines, retro websites, and forum posts for decades. 2 deaths, 1 cursed game, I mean the whole thing. Well, turns out, the Jeff stories were a bit of a stretch to the truth. What actually happened to Jeff Daly was that he died on May 1981, yes, but in an automobile collision on Route 58 in Suffolk, Virginia at 1:10 in the morning. The real Jeff Daly worked for the Norfolk and Western Railway, attended the Suffolk Christian Church, and his death was reported in the local newspaper. The gaming version of him appears to have been completely fabricated, probably to make one genuine incident feel like part of a pattern, because there is one genuine incident. On Saturday, April 3rd of 1982, 18-year-old Peter Bukowski of South Holland, Illinois, walked into Friar Tuck's game room at 674 River Oaks Drive in Calumet City, a medieval-themed arcade that had only opened 2 months earlier. He'd had a long evening already. He'd walked roughly 4 miles through cold, snowy weather visiting his girlfriend and a couple of friends before swinging by the arcade. People who were with him later told investigators he was visibly short of breath by the time he got there. He walked in around 8:30 p.m., dropped some coins in the Berserk machine, and played for about 15 minutes, long enough to get his initials on the high scoreboard at least twice. Then he stepped away from the cabinet, took about 4 steps toward another machine, dropped in a quarter, and collapsed. An arcade worker started CPR immediately while calling an ambulance, but Peter was dead before he reached the hospital. He was just 18. The autopsy found scar tissue on his heart that was at least 2 weeks old, indicating a previously undiagnosed condition called arrhythmogenic right ventricular cardiomyopathy, something that Peter and his family had never known about. The coroner ruled the cause of death as a heart attack brought on by myocardial inflammation. Just as the owner of Friar Tuck's Tom Blankley said, Peter's heart had a time bomb in it that just so happened to go off here, and it ended up being part of another internet story. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this video. If you like the way I explain these stories, maybe you could leave a like on the video. If you think I earned a subscription, it would be awesome if you could subscribe. I upload a bunch of morbid documentaries. I've been uploading some of my music videos here. I have an album coming out named Dummy. It's my 3rd studio album. If you want to check it out, I go by Tub on Spotify. You can check out some of the songs here. One of them became a popular meme. You probably heard it on your Instagram Reels or TikTok.
They always said that Charlie Kirk was a Nazi, then they celebrated after they killed him. They tried to tell us the Black Lives Matter and that white people have always been villains.
I fucking hate you. Yo, mods, ban him. But yeah, that was my song named Taste. We have a song right now named Shard. So we have one more single coming out named Skin, and then the album drop.
Yeah, God bless all these people who were affected by these video games. And I never heard of these conditions. It's like new to me. It's like every different this and that. oh, I was diagnosed with this, diagnosed with that. It's a lot. It's a lot. So yeah, RIP. So all these people. Yeah, take balances if you are a video gamer, like play video games in general, like me. Make sure you have that balance. Make sure you eat, move your body in some kind of way. You know, just for even for like a minute, just stretch your body and all that. Yeah, so that was tough. And thank you guys for tuning into this video. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Follow me on my social medias. Until next time, you guys, stay grateful, stay blessed.